All right. I love this. So Ben, let's begin our podcast. I will count down, leave about 3 seconds of silence, and then I can start. So give me 1 second.
Cool.
3, 2, 1. All right, everybody. Welcome to another podcast, The Life of Stories and Business. I am your host, Trevor Rappleye, CEO of Corporate Filming and Franchise Filming. We have Ben here. Ben, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Trevor.
Yeah. Why don't you tell people listening what you do and why you love doing it?
Sure. So thanks, Trevor, for introducing me. A couple of years ago, I started a chocolate company. So what I do is pretty much everything that goes into running a small business. We produce absolutely delicious chocolate snacks here on Long Island, just outside of New York City. They're all high in cacao, which is a fruit that makes chocolate what it is. So that's our claim to being a healthy, guiltless snack. It's also fair trade certified. So we're supporting farmers around the world, hence guiltless snack. It's delicious. So that's really what we do. And I do everything from, marketing to customer support to overseeing our production facility, getting into more stores, getting in front of customers, and really building our brand. And I do it because, I absolutely believe in business as a force for good. I believe business is what's going to solve a lot of today's pressing challenges. Some of those being, farmer inequity around the world. Some of those being, misrepresentation of things that we consume every day, like chocolate. So I do this because I want to change that. I want to change the way people think about chocolate. I want to change the way people think about food and supply chains. And I think we can do that best through a delicious product like chocolate.
I love that. And I had some and it was really good. And I should buy some from you after we're done. I think we had it at the GLCC conference. I think you passed it out.
We did. Yeah. They put them on all the tables. And I think I'm glad you got one because I think there were enough for everyone to get one, but I think some people took more than one. So
I love it.
Yeah, glad you got one.
Yeah, no, it was very, very good. And I can hear the passion in really what you do, right? And there's going to be a lot of people listening, Ben, that want to begin their own business or they're kind of stuck and they don't really know what to do, where to turn. What would be one piece of advice you would give them to really get going?
Really good question, Trevor. Because that is the hardest part, right? Getting started, actually doing something. And so my biggest piece of advice, and the one that I pass on most to any aspiring entrepreneur, but also really, especially to the students and younger people who really want to get their hands dirty, is to do just that. You need to start somewhere. Our product did not start looking as beautiful as it does today. It did not start tasting as great as it does today. It actually started as candy. We started in like hard candy and gummies. And so, we learned really quickly that that's not what we were going to be good at making. That's not what, customers wanted in the healthy candy space. And it was really chocolate that would do that for us. But it took us, a good month to learn that, a good month of testing different recipes and samples with our peers. And it would never have gotten to where it is today unless I started somewhere. So that's my biggest piece of advice is to just start, right? You have an idea for something, create a sample for it. You have an idea for a piece of software, start testing it with someone. Because before you do that, you won't get to the final, more beautiful, pristine version of it.
Yeah. And that's, I'm totally with you on that, right? I feel like we all shoot to be perfect, right? But how do you define perfect? Perfect doesn't actually exist. And more importantly, your first clients won't know that your product isn't perfect. They just want to help you, support you. So when people say the word perfect, I stop them. I'm like, stop. We're trying to make something that our client loves because our version of perfect
Totally.
might be different than theirs, right?
Right. Go for better, not perfect.
Go for better. Yeah. And more importantly, with beginning, right, putting deadlines and definable goals, right? And I'm not a fan, Ben, I'm not sure if you're the same way. I'm not a fan of really big, I can do 10 million our first year. I'm like, well, why don't you try and just close like 1,000 in sales, right? Like just let's start attainably, everybody, right?
Yeah, totally. You need a goal that you can reach. You need a goal that has a very reasonable timeline. And you kind of do need the shortened timeline to push you into gear. When you
Mhm.
have a shorter timeline, you're more willing to see it to the end versus a long one, which, we're all humans, we procrastinate. So give yourself a shorter timeline, but a more reasonable goal. And if you get it, you'll realize how good that feels and you'll be
Mhm.
ready for the next one.
Yeah, I love that. And I see on your information here, you can speak German,
I can,
right?
which is actually really funny, Trevor. I was actually going to relate that to the
Okay.
piece of advice of like creating a timeline. So actually, as I started this company in my college dorm room, I was graduating. I was a graduating senior. So I had literally 2 months after I started the company before I actually took a fellowship with the government. I moved to Germany and I lived there for a year. So I had 2 months to like tinker with this chocolate idea, see what I could do with it. I had nothing to lose. I may as well try it. And those 2 months were so productive because I knew I had to get into a commercial kitchen. I had to start producing the product, get the proper insurance, get all the certifications with our local food group to have a product that we could actually seal into a package and get on the shelf. And that deadline, that timeline really made me like work really hard in a
Mhm.
really short period of time so that I could have some kind of result after those 2 months, something to show for it and some level of test. So I knew if I was going to like push it forward or not.
Yeah,
And for me, that test was moving out of the country. And that was where the fun fact is that I speak German. That's where that came from.
I love that. So what's something in German that you can tell us?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's such a strange request to be put on the spot with. Um,
That's actually kind of funny. You're right. You're right.
no,
You're
no.
right.
Schokolade ist eine meiner liebste Essen und Esssachen und das ist perfekt, weil das ist auch jetzt meine Arbeit.
And what does that mean?
I just said chocolate's one of my favorite things to eat, which is perfect because now it's my job too.
I love that. I love that. Um, I love that. And I liked what else you put, with us, Ben, when you filled out that form, and you said that the one thing that you should chase in life is the investment in yourself. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I feel really strongly about that, Trevor, for a lot of reasons. And I would say the two reasons I feel most strongly about that sentiment is number one, chances are if you're an entrepreneur and have a really strong entrepreneurial spirit, uh, the first business you start might not be your last. And so
Mm,
you as the entrepreneur are going to be the one who is pushing, I mean, every aspect of your business, the next business, and third business that you start.
mm,
So investing in yourself along the way, along that trajectory of maybe starting 2, 3, 4, a dozen businesses, is going to pay the returns by your third, fourth, or fifth business. If you had instead invested all that time, all those resources, all that effort into an idea or the business itself, by your
yeah.
second business, those are kind of left with that first one that maybe you closed or sold or lost in some way. Um, so that's kind of the first reason, because if you are a serial entrepreneur, you best be investing in yourself. The second one is, more on a more personal level, like you have to live with yourself. That's the only constant in the world of business
Mm,
is that you will be there. And at least in your own world, you'll be the one driving anything that you do. So, invest in your health, invest in your mental health, invest in, your network, your relationships on both a personal and professional level. I think that's just so number one.
I love that. I love that. And I was looking around where looks like we're only broadcasting on my company Facebook, so I'll tag you and repost that later. But yeah, and
Sure.
there was a quote, and I get hit up, once a month about people wanting like advice and stuff. And the one thing that I wanted to say to people listening, and I'm sure you would agree with, is like, don't try and do 10 things, right? Try and do one thing. That quote of, if you chase two rabbits, you'll chase, if you chase two rabbits, you'll catch none.
Yep.
Right. And that really stuck with me. So what advice would you have someone that wants to do 25 things because they're the jack of all trades and they want to serve everybody? Like, what would you tell them to be like, niche down, stop, slow down? Yeah.
Well, I mean, the truth is I could probably also use some advice in that area. But I will say, you know, when you are young and starting a company, I think what we sometimes forget is that you have, at the age of 20, you have 45 working years ahead of you, minimum.
Oof.
And that's a long, long time. And I think especially as a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old, I think we don't realize just how like huge that time span really is.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do break down your professional life into buckets, I think you want to be able to realize that you can have multiple buckets, that you don't need
Yeah.
to chase two rabbits at once, because chase one for 4 years and then you can shift gears and chase that other rabbit in another 4 years.
Yeah.
Because those are such small percentages of your entire career. So I think often we get ahead of ourselves and don't realize like just how much opportunity is still ahead of us. And we
Mm-hmm.
get nervous. And so we want to chase all the rabbits because we think we need to get, all of those things on our resume and all of those accomplishments. We need to have something to show for them. But there's a
Yeah.
lot more time, I think, than we realize in our whole career.
Yeah. And Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm sure you've heard of him, and he's
Sure.
my favorite person. I think he's 45, and he says all the time he feels so young. He goes, he feels so young. And that like motivates me because I just turned 30. I can't be out past like midnight now because I'm so tired. And like, yeah, and it's he says something that I think about a lot. And he says, if you go to an old folks home, right, and you ask them the one thing they wish they would have done more, they said, I wish I would have just lived. I wish I would have just took that risk. I wish I would have started that business, because
Mm.
they have so much regret in them. Like and that actually keeps me awake at night. It's like, I don't want to have regret. Right. So I love that you're doing it, rocking, feeding people. I love it. It's good
Yeah,
food.
that's
Yeah.
great, Trevor. Yeah, that's really important to remember.
Yeah. So tell us, how did you land, and if you can't say a name, that's fine. How did you land your largest client, right? And what did you do to get them?
That's a great question. Sure, I can use a name. We just started selling actually about a little bit less than a year ago. We started selling to Bank of America.
Love
So when
it.
people think Bank of America and you think what they're buying, they're usually buying like paper services or security software services, um, you
Yeah.
know even real estate services for their big buildings and their towers. But of course, their employees eat, and their employees need to have an enjoyable treat while they're working.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just under a year ago, we actually started selling to their corporate tower in New York City and their executive pantry in Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, and really, getting that customer was definitely a process. It was a marathon, not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
We started to sample. We did a couple of samplings in their New York City tower at their cafe where the chocolate would have been sold if they were ready to buy it. So we actually just, shared free samples with their employees, who were already, making a trip to the cafe looking for something to eat. We
Yeah.
basically surveyed them, found out what they liked, what they didn't like, and then eventually we put it for sale in the cafe and directed the traffic basically to the product on the shelf. And if that did well, they would keep it permanently, and it did, or semi-permanently. And
Mm-hmm.
then they gave us the option to introduce the product to the executive pantry in Charlotte. So now the C-suite at Bank of America eats our chocolate during the day,
I
which is
love
really
that.
cool. Yeah.
That literally makes me So you literally went in from the top down. You didn't go from the down. You went to the executives first, is what you're saying.
Well, we did go to the food buying executives first, but we
Okay.
started in New York City at their tower on their
Okay.
fourth floor cafe, which is just open to employees. And then the second step was the executive pantry at the C-suite. So pretty quickly, we went right to the C-suite, which was pretty cool.
So that actually reminds me of something that we used to do. I need to start doing it again. When someone used to become a lead with us, and the key is a qualified lead,
Hmm.
right? We've all learned that. I used to think I want 100 leads a day. It's like now I'd honestly rather have two great ones a week, right? That
100%.
have marketing budget. So we did that actually in the past where if there'd be a good lead, I used to just send like a Skittles bag. But then I'm like, hold on, how can I make more people get involved? So I used to send like 50 bags of Skittles
Oh
from
my God.
Amazon. So now I literally would. So what do you think they're doing? They're passing it around. Who
Totally.
sent the Skittles? I don't know. This crazy videographer Trevor wants to work with us, but now it's a talking point, right?
Sure.
It's the talking point. It's the experience. I think people underestimate how valuable word of mouth is, right? And I
Totally.
do like I do a trick where if I'm talking to the CMO, I find the CTO, the CEO, the whatever. I find like 10 other people on LinkedIn, say hi, plus we send them Skittles, right? And it's like it's crazy the amount of Skittles we send out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Skittles are like your mark now. I love it.
Yeah, it's actually a great story about that. I'm a big fan of sending mugs out, right?
Okay.
Kind of took a pause with COVID just because we didn't know if people were from home or they're from the office and we don't really have people's home address, right? But I would send a mug out. It's $5 for the mug, $15 for shipping. So it can definitely add up, right? But a great story is I sent someone a mug back in 2016. Okay. Forgot I sent it to her. She said we weren't a good fit. And something that we both know in sales is a no is just a no now. It's not a no forever. Right. So when someone says no, I boomerang that email. I have it come back within 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I have this whole thing set up. And I say all this because I got a random call in 2017. I was filming a wedding and someone goes, "Yeah, I don't know how I got your mug, but I've been drinking from it for like 2 years." And I'm like, "Oh yes, of course." I was just making up that I knew who she was. She goes, "You guys do videos, right?" And then it led to like a $50,000 contract just from a mug. So I love what you're doing. You're giving them an experience. You're letting them taste it, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you have to do that, right? Like you have to let them peek into what the relationship would look like if you did start working together.
Yeah.
Best case scenario is that you can do that with your product, like we can with chocolate. Second best case is that you can send them, something else that they can use and enjoy.
Mm. I love that. I love that. So Ben, if you have any like lasting advice or thoughts for someone, because people listening could be someone that wants to begin a business, someone that has a business, what would be one thing that you really learn that, I mean, I can say mine after yours too, but that kind of like hit home and you're like,
Mm.
"Crap, I shouldn't have done that. And you learned so much from it. What would that be?
I think we forget, and at least I'm speaking for myself when I say this, is like throughout the months and the years of business, we remember starting the company. We remember like, wow, I can't believe I pulled the trigger on that. And we just talked about it too in this interview. We talked about like just start, right? Like start making some samples and then you'll take the next step. But what I think we sometimes forget, and I do at least, is like throughout the months and years of business, we're constantly iterating. We are constantly launching and innovating within our already established brand, whether that's a new flavor of chocolate or a new package design or a new way that we source ingredients that is essentially for the better of the company. All of those things are almost like little mini company launches. And when I take a step back and I look at the past timeline of those mini launches, I realize like I still fall into the trap that I just warned everyone about, which was just start, just launch more quickly. And every iteration that we make in the company, I look back and I say, wow, I could have done that a month sooner. Had I made the decision, had I, actually just like figured out what it was that we wanted to do and just pulled the trigger already, I could have done it much more quickly. And so I think that's my biggest piece of advice for those of you who are already in business is like, gosh, every time that you launch something iterative, it is actually like you were when you were starting out. Do it more quickly. And I need to remind myself of that advice too. I'm at fault for that.
Yeah, and sometimes like during COVID, we relaunched our brand. We got a new logo. We redid corporate filming, franchise filming. We redid everything because I just can't sit still. It's probably all the espresso that I have all the time. Even right now, I'm just like this. But I think so. I wanted to rebrand. I wanted to only go to subscription model. So that's what we are now. We don't do one-off videos because we weren't helping the people that we serve. It was one-off videos every 3 years. Like that doesn't work anymore. So we work on a subscription basis where we create monthly videos, ongoing. And if they can't think of ideas, we tell them what to do, right? So I say all that because as we were launching that, my team goes, Trevor, but what if we do all this and it doesn't work? I'm like, yeah, but what if it does? Like that sounds cliche, but like I think all the what ifs turn to what is, and what if it does work? What if you launch quicker? And the thing is, you're going to make the same errors you would have done in month 1 versus month 3. So, and you can't know that unless you just launch.
You're right. You're right. The errors in planning are, those are, I think, much smaller than the errors in actual execution or operationalization, if that's even a word. And you need to just like hit those head on.
Yeah, and I think we also underestimate that if you just tell prospects or clients that we're in beta phase, we're in test phase, people are nice. They're like, oh sure, hey, your box came back kind of weird. Oh, thanks. But since you set expectations, people don't expect this perfect product. It's like when we were in wedding videos, people would email us and say, why is my video taking it's been 2 weeks. Where's my wedding video? I'm like, 2 weeks, man. Right. But I realized we didn't tell them it took us 2 months. Right. So I'm a big advocate that anytime a customer is confused, it's our fault as a business because we didn't explain it. Right. Or we didn't explain it in layman terms,
Great point.
But no, I love that. Yeah. All right, Ben, I'm going to put you on the spot again. We want to start a tagline. Okay. And the tagline is, let me pull it up. Someone making this podcast, take this out. People on Facebook, we're live. So we're just going with it. So I want to try something like, hi, my name is Ben from North 5, right?
5 North.
5 North. I was really close
cool.
on that.
You just
Definitely take that out of the
podcast.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ben from XYZ company, and my story is XYZ. Is it powerful? Is it emotional? Is it like what is one word you can describe your story as? And I'd love
so that's I have to fill in the blanks.
Yeah, I'll chat you it too. And we'll take this off during the podcast. So I think I just chatted it. I don't know. People on Facebook, welcome to live, but we're so my story is humanizing. My story is emotional, like yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
And what we'll actually do, Ben, is I'll stop the Facebook Live because I don't have one ready. So I totally put you on the spot. So people watching on Facebook, we are launching this podcast on 11/1. We will send links. Thanks.
Okay. Do you want me to read my tagline?
Yes, do it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ben Kennard. I'm from 5 North Chocolate, and my story is personal.
Ooh, love that. Love that.